Welcome to Safe Realty. I'm so thrilled you've joined me today, where I just had an eye-opening conversation with two of the members of the Vancouver Police Department's personal safety team. So I had Staff Sergeant Cathy Hill. She's been a member of the Vancouver Police for over 25 years as a frontline officer, educator, and trainer with the VPD. And then she was in the forensics unit. That's like the CSI, what we see on TV, but it's really not as glamorous. It's quite tedious and very important. And now she's a staff sergeant and a manager in police recruit training. So Cathy is here, and one of her partners, Sergeant Heather Partridge, has also joined from the VPD. She's been a member for 22 years. And like most do, she started as a first line responder, school liaison, and then a detective in the intimate partner violence unit. And that's where she still is as a supervisor. And on top of all of that, she's also a member of the public safety unit. And that's the people who respond to public safety crisis should the need arise. And so thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today. This personal safety team that Vancouver Police Department has formed is of over 30 female police officers. They volunteer their own time in the community. They teach women and some men personal safety and self-defense. It's more personal safety and self-protection than self-defense. I'm so thrilled that you're joining us today, where we discuss our top 4 safety tips and their top 2 protection tips. You will feel the dedication and passion that these women have for teaching us to protect ourselves. It's contagious, and you will want to sign up immediately for one of their free workshops. Yes, that's right, free workshops. I am your host, Shannon Cutler, and I am on a mission to educate my listeners so they don't become the next true crime news headline. As a former police officer with 18 years of investigative experience and now a real estate agent, I guide realtors on how to handle their own security in vulnerable situations and develop best safe business practices. If you enjoy learning new tools to improve your safety, I'm going to ask you to please follow this podcast. And if you would leave a review, share it with your friends. Even better, play this episode at your next office meeting. So, I am wearing pajama pants and a nice sweater. I love Zoom. So thank you both so much for your time. I know it's a challenge to get together because you're very busy. So a little while ago, I was teaching a realtor safety course. One of the girls on my course mentioned that she had taken a self-defense class, a women's self-defense class from 2 Vancouver City police officers, females, and she said that was like this group, and she just couldn't remember the name or what it was. And so I've been Googling, and it took me about 3 days to reach you. And thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today. Okay, so you guys have started this women's safety team. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how that came to be and why you're teaching that?
Yeah. So the actual name of the team is called the Vancouver Police Women's Personal Safety Team. And it was created 12 years ago by 2 other women. Their names are Colleen and Alice. And it was in response to a safety fair that was planned at a community center here in Vancouver. And at first, they did the first session and they expected maybe 10 or 20 women to show up, and 200 showed up. And they were like, whoa, this is something that we need to develop. So out of that was the creation of the Vancouver Police Women's Personal Safety Team. And so far over the years, I can't count how many women that we have presented to, but it's in the thousands. Cathy and I are both presenters, and we've been doing it for 10 years. It's been now around for 12 years, which is we're in our 12th year right now. We present to high schools, senior centers, community centers, some private groups, and all over the city of Vancouver. And then sometimes we will branch out into smaller areas if there's, there's a specific ask. But it's about a 2-hour session every time we do it, and it's lecture based for the first part, and then it's actually hands on. So everybody gets down on the mats. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, what your ability is. Everyone gets involved. and it's really great. It's really rewarding. Did I miss anything, Cathy?
Nope.
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 Yeah. So that's basically what we are in a nutshell. We are on Instagram, WPST on Instagram, and we're also on the Vancouver Police website under Women's Personal Safety Team under Crime Prevention. Yeah. And then I think that's about it for.
And they're free. So
they're free.
Yeah.
Yes.
We our goal is to supply workshops within Vancouver, free. At this point, it's a women's only workshop, but throughout the city of Vancouver, and the idea is try to get the message out to as many people as possible. During COVID, we had to kind of steer the ship onto online, so we started doing online, and we're hoping to continue that just to be accessible to people who can't actually make it out to the centers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It was hard to track down somewhere to reach you, and I saw all these places that you guys were going to, and it said join the waiting list. So all the classes were full, which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And so what made this a personal choice for you guys to get involved in?
I think for me, my work has always been with working with people who have been victimized. And I was getting really tired of women not having some sort of a resource or knowing that they are allowed to fight back. So, and we talk about that a lot in the workshop, and I think we're going to talk about it in this podcast as well. But we talk about allowing the women to have permission to actually say no. And that's why I wanted to get involved. And also, I have a daughter, so that also was self-motivating as well, because I wanted to make sure that she would also benefit from this as well. So she's come to some sessions as well, and a lot of our daughters have come as well, and then they spread the message out to their friends. So it's that's why I do it. I do it specifically to help women specifically. And Cathy?
Yeah, and on the same vein, being a frontline patrol officer and just going to calls of service, and then moving into our forensic identification unit, which is like the CSI for Vancouver, and just helping people through, pretty traumatic situations, whether it's their car getting broken into or their home getting broken into, being a victim of an assault, and anything we can do to help people improve their personal safety skills and even just awareness was something that if I could do, it would be really good. And then again, knowing people personally, professionally, and just sharing that message so that we can make the city safer by making the people safer, and then just making them feel safer, which is really what we get at the end of the workshops, is people feel empowered and they feel like they're more aware, which is really what the message is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I teach my course, people always want self-defense, like actual physical self-defense. And I was like, well, this course is supposed to be the self-defense so that we're not in a situation where we have to use our fists or a weapon, because very likely we'll lose because of all the other things that, that go into planning, an attack when somebody's coming and you're not prepared. You don't have the muscle memory. Adrenaline goes and our vision goes short and small, and we don't have, the awareness to fight back. So we're trying to target harden ourselves to have our heads up, head on a swivel, be aware of what's going on, so that we can avoid these situations, which is, that's amazing. I love what you guys are doing. I'd love to find a way to get you over here sometime.
Yes.
So
we have done a couple of traveling road shows.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely something that we can talk about. Yeah.
We will. We will talk about that. So you said that your typical workshop is 2 hours, and the first hour is discussion and education, and then the next part is actual physical. So I know we don't have 2 hours, so maybe you guys could cover your top 3 to 5 safety tips or things that you teach people. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because even just in what you were just talking about, avoidance and awareness are really like our cornerstones, and putting ourselves in situations that can be more challenging to remain safe and being able to avoid situations is really one of the cornerstones. And some of that comes from the awareness and the awareness of a certain situation. We talk about little things like where you park your car. Is it close to the main entrance? Is it well lit? Where do you have your keys when you're walking to your car? Are they in the bottom of your purse where, you know, you're going to have to like dig through your purse to get them, or are they in your hand so that you can activate the key fob right away? Letting people know what your plans are. So if you're going to go for a walk, are you walking with others? Are you alerting people to where you're going, what time you should go, what time you are expected to be back? The story I always use is I relate it to my dogs.
Yes.
Is when I step out in the morning early and it's dark to walk my dogs. They head out the door first, and if I'm watching them, they're sniffing, their ears are up, they're looking around, you know, they're alert and aware. And that's kind of how we have to be. We talk a lot about that good projection of body posture. It portrays good self-confidence, but it's also physiologically you're better able to respond. You have better peripheral vision, your hearing is better, you're more ready to respond. So just knowing what you're coming into or the situation you're involving yourself in, and then being aware of what you can do to respond.
Yeah. So awareness would be our number one tip of awareness of your surroundings, and then awareness also of you. So where is your head? Where's your eyes? Where's your phone? You know, sometimes we all see this. People are walking across the street. They've got their head buried in their phone. They're texting. They're absolutely, we use the term code white, right? Like they're not aware of anything. So, you know, we talk to women about that all the time about like, be aware, get your head up, get it out of, you know, out of your phone. So that would be our first one. The second one would be avoidance. So we talk a lot about avoidance. So again, Cathy talked about the parking of the car. So, you know, you don't necessarily want to be parking your car late at nights, far away from the entrance of your office, if you know that you're going to be leaving and there's no lighting. And also maybe it's like, okay, is it a good idea for you to be coming home on the SkyTrain at 2:00 in the morning? Or maybe could you take an Uber or maybe leave earlier, right? So so we talk about the avoidance of some situations, you know, where you're just like, you know what, I'm just not going to do that. This is not the right time. This is not the right day. I'm not going to do that. Or, you know, I'm going to just completely avoid that situation altogether. That also might mean crossing the street. So you don't like what you see on one side of the street, you cross the street. If that person, you know, crosses the street with you, I think it's time to whip out your cell phone and call 911. Right. So we talk about avoidance a lot. That's our second tip.
And then probably gut instinct is the other.
Yeah. So gut instinct, we always talk about this in the program as well. It's like your stomach is kind of, you know, churning, hairs on the back of your neck are going up. Again, going back to Cathy's dogs, if her dogs are bristling and they're like, they probably sniff a bear outside of her place. No. But if they're like, they're not happy, okay, then, you know, we always know we got to trust our body, right? So if that's, you're sitting on the bus and some guy sitting beside you, you get that feeling, you move seats or you go tell the transit operator, or again, you whip out your phone and, you know, you're just not feeling comfortable, right? And we, in Vancouver, we're very lucky we can text this phone number, which will get us help on the buses. So, but it's all about that avoidance, right? So it's situational avoidance and then gut instincts. And then our last one would be, is the permission to actually fight back. Yeah. So a lot of people have a hard time with this in our workshop. Yeah. And we explain the criminal code, the right to defend yourself. It's right in the criminal code of Canada. And then we talk about like the fight back might be the simple, no, stop it, you're making me uncomfortable. Or could you please not touch me? Or not even please, it would be like, don't touch me. Right.
There's no
and
please.
but yeah. Well, women, we say please all the time, right? And we're nice and we're submissive. And, you know, with the whole fight back, it might just even be making eye contact, right? And that's really hard for a lot of people to make eye contact, right? And just simply looking at that person and like saying, yeah, I see you. I know exactly what you're up to. That might be enough for that person to go, okay, this isn't the right person that I'm going to choose, right? So those would be like, I think our 4 top tips for for that. And then Cathy actually talked about it already, but do you want to just talk about like body posture and walking and
Yeah, and just realistically being so aware of your surroundings, like Heather had mentioned, like the crossing of the street, like you're able to assess the situation. You're constantly assessing it so that you know what's happening. And so if you cross the street and all of a sudden the other person's crossing the street, now you're starting to size up, okay, why are they crossing the street? Do they have like a legitimate reason to do that? So you're changing your behavior because you're assessing the situation. Just piggybacking on one of the other things that Heather was saying was about your voice. And one of the things we talk about is finding your voice, and that strong, powerful voice. I again use my dog a lot, like the difference between stay, and then an even louder stay, and the tone in your voice. So even if you are saying, please get away, if you have a good, strong tone and direction, you are going to get that intended message out there, but it's also going to alert everybody around you, right? So we've all been there when we see an incident unfolding and you hear the voice and the words and it draws attention, and that's what you want in those situations. But it's also that message of stop, right? Stop right now. And
Yep.
then as you say it louder with more authority, it has more meaning. So it's really learning to find your voice. It's quite interesting as we progress into the more hands-on portion of the sessions that we do, because a lot of these participants have never physically touched somebody or pushed somebody, which is great. We wish we lived in a world where that was never the result, but we have to be able to take ourselves there. And some of the reasons that we have to be able to go there is we have to prepare ourselves psychologically. So, and it's knowing that you are worth that fight. You will protect yourself. You will be able to do whatever it is you need to do to get yourself home, to get yourself safe. And so it's instilling that confidence. And some of that confidence comes from all those steps that if it gets to that point, you will be able to do it. Yeah.
That's right. I really like I like that. So much of what you're saying is what I talk about, but I don't have the hour in the we talk about the self-defense, and it sort of encompasses this. I know I grew up in a rough town in northern BC, and then I boxed and kickboxed. And then when I went to training in the RCMP, all the girls in my troop all asked me to take them to the boxing gym with gloves to hit them because they'd never been in a physical fight, and these were police officers in training. And I couldn't believe it because of where I grew up, because not that I was a fighter on the street, but I mean, like, it was a common thing where it would happen. And then in addition, just what I had done for recreation, and let alone the regular person, like, who gets into fights. Not very many people, which is a wonderful thing. But I totally can relate to what you're saying, and that they need that. Yeah, they need that permission, and that is such a big one, and that's what people are talking about in so many things I listen to. That permission to, like, just take that from here out, and do that. So I often suggest people have those little body alarms. You know, those ones that are really, really horribly loud. I have one on my showing purse. It's obscene. We talk about drawing attention with, like, alarms, voice, noise, lights. Anything that draws attention is what bad guys like. Darkness and the cover of darkness and quiet. We like to draw attention to it. Have you guys had any experience with using those body alarms or anything?
We have had them out at some of our different venues as not parting gifts, but participation gifts. So again, it is that, right? It's drawing that attention and being able to get others sort of to assist you in those moments as well.
I think in terms of creating that scene. So we always talk about this, that if you are, if someone is in your personal space and they're attacking you, it is creating that scene. So Cathy talked about it, the finding your voice. Stop, get off me, somebody call the police, I need help. Like, it's really loud, and it is creating the scenes. Someone's probably going to whip out their cell phone and start filming, because that's what people are doing now. But hopefully someone is calling 911, right? And a lot of the times when we're talking to the participants, And we show them scenes of violent situations, and we show them that for a purpose, so they actually see that that is unavoidable violence. So when someone is attacking you, it's unavoidable. So you have to fight back because you have to change their mindset, because they're looking at you as their prey.
Mhm.
And so if you create back, you fight back, you use those words, I mean, they may not even they're like, oh, I'm out. This is too much work, right? Because they like
Yep.
easy prey, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you create that scene, you're screaming, you're yelling, you're fighting back. We teach them the fighting back.
Yeah.
And then, and then we teach them at the one point, it's time to run and call the police, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then they're like, oh, but we don't want to bug you guys, we shouldn't call. And we're like, no, we live for this. Honestly, this is what we get up for in the morning, right? Because we want to come help you. And no call is too small, and we will come.
We
So
want that bad guy to not harm
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
That's
We
right.
will help you.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
we talk a little bit during the session about how 911 works and the importance of calling us as
Mhm.
soon as they can within safety, right? Get somewhere safe, give us a call so that we can get there and deal with the threats that are around. And like you
Mhm.
say, like if it's a bad guy girl, we want to catch them as soon as we can to prevent any other persons getting injured.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
quite interesting because on a very simple basis, when people talk about situations, and we do have some people share in these workshops, a lot of times they didn't want to be rude to this
Yeah.
person. So we talk about standing up for yourself, and we the focus of our workshop is really personal safety.
Mhm.
So do whatever you need to do in the moment to feel and be safe. And if being rude to somebody, especially a perfect stranger, is what's going to keep you safe, you have to and you should be rude.
Yeah.
We encourage people to be rude, especially to complete strangers.
Yeah.
And I always say, even if it's someone you know and you have to apologize later because you didn't recognize them, or it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Right? Your safety,
Yes.
doing what you need to do in the context of that moment is what's critical. And whether that's calling 911, whether that's getting out of the situation, like standing up and
Mhm.
walking away on a bus. But the bottom line is doing whatever you need to do in that moment to stay safe. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sometimes, like the alarms are part of that solution. Our workshops do progress to that unavoidable violence where you have to stop the situation. And part of that means engaging. And that can be a really psychological, difficult thing
Mhm.
to do for people who have never been in that situation before or never been physical. But in those extreme situations, you have
Mhm.
to engage or else the encounter will not end.
Yeah.
So
Now,
we
with
turn
the
that attack the attacker, and that's where we've given them some skills of what to do in certain situations. But it is a mindset that we really have to help people
yes.
have. We hope they never have to use it, but
Yes.
just to be prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
mindset is the biggest piece.
Yes.
And that long and the thought process, the survival mentality and the
Yeah.
fighting back is what will keep somebody going
Yeah.
and able to continue to fight back no
Yeah.
matter what's going on.
And
So
we talk about what motivates you, and really
yeah.
we tell them, like, think about if you were in a situation, what's going to help you focus, what's going to motivate you. For most of us it's family or children,
Mhm.
that we want to get home to, but you have to find that inner drive of what's going to motivate you to just keep fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're on like an audio, so we can't see a physical, like a self-defense class, but
Mhm.
if you could describe um if somebody needed one self-defense tip, what would you say to them?
Mhm.
Like a physical self-defense thing, what would you say is the most important
I,
thing?
I would say that, um, and we do call it personal safety, or, so we try to get away from self-defense. And the reason we get away from self-defense is because if you're defending, you're already behind. So we go to protection and we go to that awareness. So you probably can avoid 99.9% of the situations is if you are aware of your surroundings and avoid the surroundings that would put you in a vulnerable situation. if you do find yourself where someone were to grab you, the first thing that we would say is, number one, scream as loud as you can, right? And it's like, because they're not expecting that reaction. They're expecting a compliant person. And so if you're already, I think of a kid and you go to pick them up and they're having a tantrum. What are they doing? They're pumping their legs, they're screaming, they're crying, they're causing a scene. Everybody in Superstore is like, whose mother or whose child is that, right?
Not
Because
my
they
kid's never done that.
yeah, exactly. Our kids are angels. So you create that scene right away. Automatically, either that person is going to drop you or stop touching you because you're too hard. You're just too much to manage. So we want to create that scene right away. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Cathy, what do you think?
Yeah, and kind of on a similar vein, it's really hard without having like the physicality of being able to see, but keeping moving,
Yes.
like when you can and if you can. And of course, every situation is unique to itself, so it's hard to say this will work all the time. But try to keep moving and using your voice. So, because a moving target is really hard to acquire, right? But it's also going to draw attention. It's going to hopefully cause some physical strain on the attacker's part. So just try to keep moving. Yeah. But avoidance really, like, as soon as you see something that, like we were talking about before, your gut instincts, like, gosh, that person's awfully close, get away. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And even just a simple example. I went and I was telling women about this. I went to the recycling place, taking back the recycling, and this guy was like, "Oh, hey, you look nice." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not nice. No." And then he said something else. And then finally I just looked at him and I go, "Hey, buddy." I was like, "Why don't you just back off?" Okay. And then he was like, "Well, aren't you, he called me a couple of names." And I was like, whatever. Right. But it was just like, he was taking that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And, even a daughter was on the bus. This guy sits beside her. She gets creeped out. She goes right up to the front and she tells the bus driver, right? Bus driver immediately pulled the cord, pulled over, told the guy to get off the bus, right?
Wow.
So
That's
like
great.
that's do something, say something, do something right away.
Yeah.
So that's would be our biggest things, and I know that your folks that you're dealing with, like, they're alone a lot, right? So they need to have some sort of quick liners, or like, hey, hey, we're closed.
Yeah.
Actually, showing's over, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Something that they could say right away.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then we teach a lot of, like, when someone goes to grab you, how to get out of that grab.
Yeah.
And it's not like taekwondo, jujitsu, all this kind of stuff. Like, it is simple stuff.
Yeah.
It might even be as simple, Shannon, as stepping on their foot. Right? So
slamming down on it.
Slamming on it with like a good old heel, you can do some major damage, right? So those are things that we talk about and we actually practice them. And then the great thing in our classes is we'll bring mats and we bring pads, and people get to actually like attack us, right? And usually I come home with a lot of bruises. And I've had like a 91-year-old lady beat the crap out of me in one of these things.
Wow.
They're wiry.
Yeah.
But when you actually get that actual, feeling of like making contact with something, super impactful for people. And then they're like, I can do that. Yeah.
Just that. I love that. Like, they leave there feeling like, I can do it. Not that I want to, and they're not looking for a fight on the street, but they now have that little bit of confidence. And that's what I
there's a lot of brothers and husbands, I think, that probably get attacked that night.
That's practice.
Yeah.
So, I know, Heather, you had mentioned that you spoke to a group of realtors recently.
We both did.
Yeah, it was both of us.
Did. Okay. And there were a couple of things that you noticed. So, because, I want anybody to listen to this podcast, because everything that I talk about could be used in your life in general, but it is geared towards realtors. So you did say you noticed a couple things from that talk with realtors. Maybe do you want to speak to that now?
Yeah. So I think what we both noticed was just the lack of them thinking about their safety and the possibility that something could possibly happen. So once we were like, okay, well, have you ever considered bringing a camera with you? Have you ever considered of like setting up like a little Google Nest or whatever it is that's live streaming back to the office, or, you know, having a sign up that says, you know, welcome, you're on CCTV. And then, you know, and or making sure that they're parking their car nice and close, that if they do need to leave, they can get out and they have an escape route. So that wouldn't be nosing your car into the property. You might have it backed into the property, or it's, you know, right on the street that you can quickly jump in it and take off. Having a buddy with you. And then the other big thing that we did notice is the social media accounts of some of the younger realtors that reveal quite a bit about their personal life as well as their professional life. So sometimes it was bleeding into each other. So you could learn quite quickly, you know, perhaps more about that person than you really should know. As opposed to the calendar that I get from my realtor that is of houses or recipes. Right, where it's
something.
Mountain. It's a little bit too personal. So, you know, it's social media is great for some of this, but it also can reveal a little bit too much about you as well.
And we even talked a little bit about like the actual physicality of doing a tour.
Yes.
Like, are you in front or behind the person if they're going up or down the stairs? Are you letting them go into the room and you just stay at the door? So then if something's untoward, you can leave, right? You don't necessarily have to go in and now they're standing in the doorway and you have no way of getting out because they're blocking that, right? Or knowing that you're on the phone. You know, little things like if someone's starting to give you sort of untowards feelings, like getting on your phone. Yeah, okay, honey, you're going to be here in 5 minutes. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, we'll see you soon, right? Doesn't matter if you have a honey or not, but for them to know that somebody's waiting outside in the car, right? We don't have to be honest if it means keeping ourselves safe. Again, it's that politeness.
100%.
There is a little bit of a challenge because it is part of the livelihood, but in the same vein, you just need to know who's in the buildings with you and whatever you can do to make it safe right from the get-go. So like the cameras or having somebody there, right?
And making sure, like specifically in your phone, your location services is on. So your phone's with you, location services is on, or you're sharing your location. So, you know, you're with a fellow realtor and you're like, okay, I'm going to go show this property. Here's my location. You drop it to them. They know where you are. I'm going to be 15 minutes. Okay, so now we know we've got a window, and you can even tell you're the client. Hey, you know what? I only got 15 minutes. The office is you know, I got to move to the next showing. I got 15 minutes. It's in my calendar. Blah blah blah. So you're already front loading some of this information to them. So they're like, oh, okay, great, right? And you know, we've watched enough CSI shows that, you know, that people can figure out this stuff pretty quick, right? So we want to make sure that we're front loading and giving boundaries and guidelines to the clients.
Huge. I know that I felt uncomfortable with a fellow one time, and he was just got out of the car already asking me personal questions right away. And I said, you know what? I have to make a phone call. I'm going to open the door for you. You go ahead in. And I just stood outside for a moment, just to gather my thoughts. And I said, you know what? They've double booked us. Somebody's going to be showing up here right away. So just take your time, wander around, but don't be alarmed if somebody else shows up. And I just stood near the door. And it ended up being just fine. But in my course, I teach the little white lie. You don't have to be truthful.
No.
You're not lying about the house and the condition of the property. It's like, you know, you can't lie about evidence when you're interviewing a bad guy, but you can use the little white lie. And just I'd say, or like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up, and I run out of the house pretending to be sick, or whatever it is. You don't have to be, but it just allows some time and distance for you to sort the problem out if, you know, if you get help.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, like having that personal protection alarm, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with even like making it visible. So, you know, that the client sees, or that, you know, the potential client see it. And, you know, I think if I were doing it, I would probably always have a sign up that's saying, you know, you're on CCTV and, you know, my location is shared at all times.
And why not?
And why not? Because you know what? I think sometimes other people would feel more comfortable with that too.
Yeah.
So, like they don't want to get accused of stealing something.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
well, you're on video,
Yeah.
right? And I think enough people now have video that, I know I have video at my house and my neighbors all do. Like, you can't literally get up our street and I can track you, right? So, I think that's just the way it is now.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's no reason with not having, a sign up saying you're on video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's a good
100%
option.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that you're saying, and I'm like, when I talk to people, I'm like, why are you doing this? So many crazy things. And I appreciate you
Well,
mentioning the social media thing, because that is one thing we do talk about is how do you want yourself to appear to in a professional setting versus a personal setting. We talk
Yeah.
about security, how to manage your security online as far as
Yeah.
settings in each of the platforms.
Mhm.
And people
Yeah.
really need to pay attention to that, because
Yeah.
we are professionals, and that's the point of us being on there in
Yeah.
that way. And the attention you may and the clients you potentially might get from a night at the club with the girls is likely not the client you want to work with professionally. So
Yeah.
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 Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting close to running out of time, but you guys do a lot of talk to people about harassment
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
to recognize the signs of harassment. And we do see a lot of that, especially online through different platforms, a lot of Facebook harassment, people accessing our numbers through WhatsApp, and then
Yeah.
the continuing. I led somebody on for a little while for the purposes of education to show a group of realtors about how fast, that if I allowed myself, how fast this person wanted to access not real estate services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want to just talk a little bit about harassment and how to recognize the signs.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you speak to this one.
Yeah. Because this is my full-time job now.
Yeah.
But basically, I think when you're looking at harassment, it's like, especially when you talk to you guys are professionals. Real estate agents are professionals. So if they are stepping outside those lines of that's the first sign that you're like, okay, this is not a professional relationship anymore. So make note of that, and then they need to be told to stop right away. So it's like, this is
Clearly.
in a clear statement. And again, this goes back to women being nice and, hugging your uncle and sitting on Santa's knee, right? Like, we have to stop doing this. So it's, you know what, sir or ma'am or whoever it is, I'm a professional real estate agent. If you want to talk about that, that's what we're going to talk about. Anything else I'm not interested in, and you need to stop this. It's inappropriate communications, and I'm basically firing you as a client, kind of deal, right?
Yes.
And if it's persistent, then that's when it's time to call the police, right? So in the Criminal Code of Canada, there's criminal harassment, and it's like the anti-stalking laws. And basically, it's repeated. There could be harassing communications by a phone, email, social media, and then if it gets into showing up to places, they're now showing up to your showings. Then that's like pure criminal harassment, and they can be arrested. And it's quite easy to prove because usually they've written things several times and probably have told you their name. And that's great. So always save all that stuff, right? So save all those emails, save all those text messages, save all of that, make notes. And then the police can gather all of that. And then that becomes a criminal harassment investigation. But the first step is always draw the line. You're making me uncomfortable. This is inappropriate. This is not a professional relationship. I'm a professional, and that's it. And so, and then a lot, again, like Cathy said, a lot of women are like, well, I thought he was nice. I thought I should be nice to him. No. Time and a place.
Yes.
Time and a place to be nice, and then there's time and place to not be nice.
Right.
So
And what I often tell people is, once they say stop, that's it. They never ever like if the relationship isn't going to be a professional one, and never engage again, and just continue to gather the information, but never re-engage at any point.
No, exactly.
Just gather the evidence and talk to police.
Yeah. And some people will say, well, I want to just keep track of them, so I'll just string them along. And it's like, well, no, because now what you're doing is you're actually engaging, right? And it's giving them this faint hope, right? So you just got to be really clear. and that's the end of it, and then report as soon as possible. We've all been in situations where we've met with people that have reported, and they're like, oh, I just didn't want to bother you guys, or I didn't think it was that serious, or oh, well, now my tires got slashed. And it's like, well, yeah, you let this progress, right? But then we always help them take the statement, get the evidence going, get the investigation going, and continue with it. So it's never too late to report.
Yes. Yeah. And also, if it's an imminent threat of violence, like they're showing up and they have a weapon on them, like
911.
still call 911 if you're ever personally at risk or there's a tenor of violence, like call 911.
Yeah. 100%.
Just because sometimes these things have their own path, and sometimes the escalation is quite unique to the situation. So just keep yourself safe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. Some people say, well, how many times is repeated? And I said, well, it can just be one time. It can be 3, it can be 7. It depends. And so call the police and ask. Don't judge it for yourself. If you don't know, that's why they're there.
Yeah. We've had criminal harassment investigations that have happened simply in one day where, this person has been harassed over the day, and it was like that's enough. It's just the repetitive, prohibited behavior, and they've been told to stop, and they continue with it. So can happen quite easily.
Yeah.
I know. It makes me mad. You want to do everything you possibly can for every single person to keep them safe. But the communication piece is the biggest thing. Clear, concise communication, and then just documentation. I know we did talk about this a little bit beforehand, but I know you do primarily teach women, but men, and I do think that mostly women will listen to this podcast. However, I've dealt with a number of male realtors who have had some of the most serious offenses against them. And some of them are, not, it doesn't matter who shows up. It, like an irate tenant I had come out at me and my 3 male clients hid behind me, and he came out guns ablaze and fists ablaze, and it wouldn't have mattered who showed up that day. So it could have been a male agent. So all these things could happen to men. But I often find that when I teach men and talk to them about this, they said they hadn't really ever considered their own safety before because they didn't feel they were vulnerable for whatever reason. Do you have anything to say to like the male listener out there that, in particular to the male listener?
Yeah. I think they are at risk for all of the same things, like you just said in that story that you were talking about. Like, that person would have come out irate. It wouldn't have mattered who that person was that was showing the house. So, and I do think everybody has that responsibility to ensure they're creating the most safe environment, as well as kind of the stalking, criminal harassment behavior. We see it on both sides of the spectrum. There's no gender specificity with that as well. And the safety is as important for them to consider, right? Because they still are in a situation where if they're not cognizant of avoiding or being aware or trusting your gut instinct, they're still going to be in that similar situation.
In fact, they might be at risk more because they might take their safety for granted. So in order for them to kind of get into this mindset, they could also think of, okay, where did I park my car, or why did I schedule this viewing at 9:00 at night in the dark winter, right? So they are at risk as well. So I think that every real estate agent really could benefit from this and take stock in their own safety. And there's no reason why they shouldn't say that they're on CCTV as well, right? There's no reason why at all, right? I think it's prudent, and I think it's just safety for everybody. So and then they always, men do, oh well, I'll just beat them up, and it's like, well, what if there's 4 of them? Right? Like that's not exactly fair. So I think all the same advice applies. And we have had some men who have attended from different walks of life, but they have attended, and they have actually said that they learned more than they ever thought they would. we've actually had some top officials in the city attend, and they've learned quite a bit. So it's been good.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes, like, if there is an attack for some reason, there could be drugs and alcohol involved. And we know
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter who's engaging with that person. If there's drugs and
Yeah.
alcohol involved, it doesn't matter what your background is,
Mhm.
good luck. So to have some skills in your back pocket is going to
Why
benefit
not?
you. Why
Yeah.
not?
For sure.
And
Mhm.
then you can share that information to other people. And for every one person that hears it, maybe they tell 2 or 3 or 4 others, and it just
Yeah.
grows. And that's the whole point of this,
Yes.
is to keep people safer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for volunteering your time on a regular basis to teach women in our community to keep themselves
Yeah.
safer. I'm definitely going to look at when I come over to Vancouver next time to see what you guys have going on, and even encourage people to come with me. Although every time I have gone on to see what you guys are doing, everything is full, which is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. But
I love
check regularly, because we're
Yeah.
always adding more. We are hoping to add a few more online,
Yeah.
remote sort of accessible
Oh, yeah.
workshops.
Yeah. Where actually they go through the moves, so you get to watch videos, and
Yeah.
women will be at their computers doing the moves at
Yeah.
the same time. It's actually quite entertaining, but
it's good.
they do follow along. We would love to do this. Like, literally, I think Cathy and I could teach this pretty much daily, and we would have full-time classes.
Yeah.
And
I
do
didn't
know
have to work.
Yeah, for enough to work. I do know some of the rec centers, like I know in my community that I live in, I just noticed that they were offering 2 workshops as well, through different agencies. So check the local listings on the island and see also with your rec centers, they might have a couple of classes as well.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
I
if
should
not, we'd
do it myself over here with my husband. He's a retired policeman too. We'll do
There
one
you
over here.
go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
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 And
That's
we
awesome.
did present to a group of real estate agents in our community, and they got down and dirty in the mats as well, and
good.
had a really good time. So, and like you said, hopefully they're going to tell 10 people. Yeah, each.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to tell 10 or hopefully hundreds of people or thousands if they listen about you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope everybody out there listening gets lots from this. I know they will. How could they not?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
So before we recap this really great episode, I just want to ask, if you have a story or tip to share, please reach out to me via email or social media. Your experience could help someone else, and it might even be featured in an upcoming episode. Links are below in the show notes. Please leave a rating and review so that others can find me and learn ways to help keep themselves safer. And if you learned anything in today's episode, please recommend this show to a friend or play this at your next office meeting. So in today's episode, Heather and Cathy share their top personal safety tips. Be aware. Avoid situations where possible. Like we're talking, get your weird feeling about the guy in the elevator, get out of the elevator, let him go. Cross the street if you find that there's a couple people following you or a person following you. Really, really dark out and you know there's mall security nearby, flag somebody down to help you. Avoid. Listen to your gut instinct. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Those are your spidey senses. And one of the most important things I felt like I got from today was their message that they tell people and they teach people to have a voice, that you have the permission to fight back, to say no, to be rude, to stop, to say stop, to ask for help, to set boundaries. I could listen to that over and over. The passion in their voices is just something that invokes strength. And I hope you all take advantage of that, of their message. And if all else fails, or you're attacked, or you're cornered, they teach you, be loud, move around, create a scene, and fight back. I have linked to the Vancouver Police Department's women's personal safety team in the show notes below. I encourage you to sign up for one of their in-person or online classes. They are free. Like 2 hours with these two or any of their personal safety team would probably be 2 of the best hours you could spend in your life. And if you're somewhere else in the world, sign up for a personal safety class in your area. or on one of their online, the Vancouver PD, on one of their online classes that these ladies do. Do not wait. Thank you so much for joining me today, for taking your safety seriously. I look forward to being with you again soon. Be safe, everyone.